If you want to speak to God,
Yeah.
if you want to talk to God, drink while, try while driving. I don't know. Try writing while driving, or try doing something while driving.
Yeah, you'll see him. Right.
You'll be able to see him, right?
That's true.
Pretty soon.
Hey, hey. Yeah. All right. Okay. While we're getting our stuff together,
What's up?
well, those who want to get their refreshment, their sustenance, remember it says Ein Kemach Ein Torah, right?
That's right.
Okay. Right. Okay, learning sponsors, Year of Learning, Friends of Nina Monester, Nechama Asna Bad Yitzchak Aharon, many friends of Stephen Vigdor, Lezecha Nishmat, Simcha Melech Ben Meir Leib Halevi, friends of Marcy Kurtz, in memory of her great niece Leah Bracha Bas Rivka, Isaac and Evelyn Blachor, in memory of his sister Chaya Rachel Bas Isa. A Month of Learning by Mark Linder, in memory of his mother Yona Bat Zalman Leib, by Rabbi Isaac Schmerler, in memory of his wife Menya Sima Bat Yitzchak Isaac, by the Friends of Marilyn Schmerler, in her memory Menya Sima Bat Yitzchak Isaac. A Week of Learning by Alan Blumenfeld, in memory of his father Gershon Ben Achaver Pinchas HaKohen, by David Mendel Cheslow, in memory of his mother Bela Bas Meir, by Sam and Shifra Coleman, in memory of his father Yaakov Ben Shmuel. Today is the 10th. We have a day of learning by Sheila and Eli Zimmerman, in memory of her father Tzvi Hirsch Ben Yechiel. Okay, and also we're still continuing Refuah Shlema for Peret Simach Ben Yaakov Yitzchak, and I don't have the name handy. I'll get it today, of a young boy who was badly hurt. He was at Camp Levi, 9-year-old boy who got hit in the chest by a pitched ball, and at the same time, as a result, had a heart attack. So they're saying the Tehillim group is saying Tehillim for him. Okay, and I'll get the name and we'll include it in our. I was saying to Karen, it always impacts me more when they're children, because when I was in St. Louis as a Rav, one of the hospitals, there's a complex of hospitals. It's St. Louis Hospital, St. Francis Hospital, and right between them was Children's Hospital. So I would occasionally have to, when I did hospital visits, go there too, and that was always the most difficult. Yeah. So. So let's see what we. All right, so we stopped on the bottom of Lamed Dalet Amud Beis, right? Okay, very near the end. I'm going to just go back a little bit. Okay. All right, going back a bit. All right. All right, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines on the bottom of right? Lamed Dalet Amud Beis. I assume that's 34B4 or in Art Scroll, I'm guessing.
Yes, it is.
Right? Okay. So what happens? It says Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayav, Reish Lakish Amar Patur. Okay. That we saw, that there's a machloket between them. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayav, Dahalo Atrube. Why? Because they did not warn him. Reish Lakish Amar Patur, he says he's exempt. Kevanda Ilu Itrube, because were it such that they had warned him, Patur, he would be exempt, okay, in that situation. Okay. Kilo Atrube Nami Patur, where they didn't warn him, he's also going to be exempt. Okay, and that's where we sort of finished up. Okay. All right, so the implication, at least one message, is that if you have the death penalty, you would pay, you wouldn't have to pay. Okay, right? No death penalty, you have to pay. Okay, but according to Reish Lakish, in that situation, right, it's he's exempt from any money payment. Okay, because right, they warned him, so he's free if they didn't warn him. Right? Okay. Yeah.
So does it pay double? Move in.
It's hard to say. There is. Remember, it was Rabbi Meir who was the only one who said that one would have to pay both in Malchus and in payment, right? But Rabbi Meir also held the same thing was if he got the death penalty.
Once he got it, that's the end of it.
No, Rabbi Meir held he would have to do both.
Before he got the fine?
No, because it was a fine.
But even the
So-
family,
So therefore, because of the fine, he doesn't have to have the death penalty. I'm aware.
No, but Rabbi Meir held he would have to do both. He would have to pay and would get the death penalty. That was what made Rabbi Meir's position unique.
Double jeopardy.
Okay, right. And he was the only one that we found in that case. Everybody else felt generally cum lemi derabba minei was applicable.
And Mayor's position is only where the fine was a unique chiddush of the
It was a
Torah,
knas.
like knas.
Right, and that was the point. Okay,
So the outcome is if he didn't get a fine. Right. On the other hand, he got the fine.
Yeah.
And then they really come later on, they disallowed the fine, and now this family, providing they gave him a throw.
that would be the question. That's-
the question.
that's
And
the
if they
argument
didn't give him a throw,
That's
then
the
he
argument
doesn't
between
get-
Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, right?
That's my logic, what I'm saying.
Okay, so that's this argument that we're into right now. Okay, so the Gemara picks up on this ATV. Okay, now who's going to challenge who? We're going to see two parts. According to one lashon, it's Reish Lakish that challenges Rabbi Yochanan, and I believe, according to another lashon, it's going to be the opposite. Okay, so the first ATV Reish Lakish the Rabbi Yochanan. So Reish Lakish challenges Rabbi Yochanan. We have a pasuk, V'lo yeh ason anosh ye'enesh. Okay, in a situation where there's a struggle, okay, and the pregnant woman is hurt, okay, in that situation, what are we saying? Right? Ma'ilo ason mamash. Aren't we talking there about an actual accident? Asks the Gemara in our daf.
Asan over there means death.
All right.
If the woman had not died.
Okay, so we're going to get to that in a
That's-
second. We're going to get to that second. So let's take a quick look at Rashi here, because Rashi is telling us, Ma'ilo ason mamash, im lo meta ha'isha, ye'onesh hanogef b'dmai v'lodut. If the woman, right? If the woman had not died,
So he would.
he would then have to pay,
for
the knas would be for the payment of the injury, the death of the Vlad.
Right.
Okay? That is what Rashi is saying.
Right.
I'm not going to read the whole Rashi. Okay, Vladot,
Right.
okay,
Right.
right? So that's the point. Lo, says the Gemara, no, din aso. No, we're talking about not that it actually happened, but the fact is that if there were, it's the penalty. The court defined the penalty here. Ika da amri. And there are others, who argue differently. Etive Rabbi Yochanan l'Reish Lakish. That it was Rabbi Yochanan who challenged Reish Lakish, citing the follow pasuk, right? Basically, it's the same pasuk. V'lo yihye ason anoshi onesh. Okay, in that case, when we're saying that then they have to pay. Okay, in other words, the one who was injured has to indicate the fine, that there should be a fine and he should be paid. Okay, my love din ason. Aren't we talking here then about the judicial decree, the judicial statement? Lo ason mamash. No, he's saying that there was actual accident, an actual harm. Let's put ason there as harm. Actual harm done. Okay, which, if we accept Rashi's explanation, could have been the death of the woman. Okay, all right. So if it did result in the death of the woman, what punishment should he get? Right? Think about it for a moment. All right. If it was shogeg.
What, it just said that.
Okay, so that's the point. All right?
Does he pay the fine and go to our mikvah, or just pay to
I would think he would have to do both. Right? Wouldn't you? Okay, let's go on. Amar Rava, says Rava as follows. Umi ika lamanda amar chayve mitot shogegin chayavin. So here this follows up, right? Natural flow in the Gemara. Who is it that says then that if somebody is given the death penalty, okay, but it was done inadvertently, that they're going to be held guilty, all right? In other words, that they're going to be really obligated to pay. That's what the implication is. Vahatana. But here we tana de Chizkiah. But we have a bright that's taught in the Academy of Chizkiah. Makeh Adam umakeh behema. All right? Makeh behema lo chilakt bo. Bain b'shogeg, bain b'mezid. If one injures an animal, okay, or injures a person, I'm going to translate it that way momentarily. All right? All right? All right? Okay. Ma makeh behema lo chilka bo bain b'shogeg, bain b'mezid. Whereas the striking injury, which could result even in the death, okay, there's no difference between it being done inadvertently or on purpose. Bain mitkavein l'she'ein mitkavein, whether it was done with intent or without intent. Bain derech yirida l'derech aliyah, whether it was done with an upward motion or a downward motion, right? L'potro mamon, ela l'chayvo mamon, to exempt him from payment, but to obligate his payment. Af makeh adam. So likewise, if one seriously injures, okay, let's put it that way, another person,
We're talking about
okay, right? Lo tachlok bo bain b'shogeg bain b'mezid. There too, we don't make a distinction whether it was done inadvertently or done purposely. Bain mitkavein l'she'ein mitkavein, whether it was done with intent or not with intent. Bain derech yirida l'derech aliyah, okay? Or whether it was done in a downward motion or an upward motion. L'chayvo mamon, ela lepotro mamon, okay, to obligate him to make a payment or to exempt him from payment. Ella, rather, says the Gemara, ki ata Ravin ama. When Ravin comes, he's going to give us a further clarification. Chayve mitot shogegin, okay, when somebody is, let's put it this way, condemned to death, okay,
If he
from
would
an
have done
act
it,
was
if-
inadvertent,
but the act was inadvertent.
right? Kuli Oma lo plige de paturim. Everybody seems to be in agreement, okay, that, okay, or they don't disagree that he is exempt, right? Ki pligi, where do they disagree? Bechayve malkot shogegim v'davar acher. They disagree when they're found, somebody is condemned to lashes, even when the act that was done was inadvertent, plus there is something else, namely the requirement to pay money. That's where the disagreement is. Okay, so we've come full circle a little bit. Bob,
Right,
everything
we've gone
okay?
through this argument before.
Okay. Rabbi Yochanan Amar says Rabbi Yochanan Chayav, okay? V'chayve mitot itkush, chayve malkut lo itkush. Okay, namely Rabbi Yochanan says there he would have to pay. Why? Because they made an association between those, okay, who were condemned to death, even though it was inadvertent, and made that association with that act. Whereas if one was condemned to Malchus, okay, they did not make the association. They did not make the parallel. Okay? On the other hand, Reish Lakish Amar Patur. Reish Lakish says the person is exempt. Befeirush Rivte Torah Chayve Malkiot Kechayve Mitot. No, says Reish Lakish. Explicitly, the Torah included, okay, those who were condemned for lashes, similar to those who are condemned for a capital case, a death penalty. Hechan Rivta Torah. On what basis does Reish Lakish say that the Torah included this? Amar Abaye, says Abaye, following. Atya Rasha Rasha. It comes from a Gezerah Shava based on the words Rasha Rasha. On the other hand, the Rava suggests Amar Atya Makeh Makeh. Rava is also, it's still based on the Gezerah Shava, but a different wording on Makeh Makeh. Right? And if we were to look at the psukim themselves, I would assume that in the commentary, Art Scroll gives the both psukim, right? That would be the case. So even though they're using a different term, okay, they're still basing it on the same kind of drasha. Okay. So what happens? Okay. Amarle Rav Papa the Rab. Okay. So Rav Papa, okay, is going to question Rava's drasha. Emake, which pasuk are you referring to where it has the word makeh in it? Ilema, if we're going to say the pasuk that says umakeh behema yishalmena umakeh adam yumat, if you're referring to that pasuk, hai b'ktalakativ, does this seem to say that he's going to get the death penalty? Okay, the implication is that there's a difference here. Regarding the animal, there's a payment. Regarding the person, only there's death penalty. So how can you make that hekesh? Ela hai makeh, but maybe you're referring to this pasuk that has the word makeh in it. Makeh nefesh behema yishalmenu, nefesh tachat nefesh. Okay, that one who strikes a nefesh behema,
An animal.
I could say an animal, the essence of an
Yes.
animal,
Right.
okay, will pay, right? Soul against soul. What does that mean? V'samichle,
Right.
okay? And juxtaposed to that pasuk is another pasuk that says, Ve'ish ki yitain mum ba'amito kasher asa ken ye'aseh lo. Okay, that the person who does a serious injury to another individual, such will be done to him. Okay, so there may be in that pasuk, because you have again makeh, but you also have smichut parshiyot. Okay, to it once more. Okay, v'hai lav makeh, but the Gemara says, wait a second, that second pasuk, okay, does not have the word makeh in it. Okay, so how can you say that might apply to chayvei mitot?
No, it's not talking about that. How can you make the Gzer Shava? You can't, there's no word Maka in the other pasuk.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. The end result is you can't make that hekesh. Okay, so what happens? Anan, we, however, okay, so this is Rav Papa, I think, right, saying, Haka'a ka'amrina. We use the Gezerah Shava on a different word, not on what Abaye said, not on what Rava said, but he's saying on the term Haka'a. Baha, ki kativ, b'chovel b'chaverohu dichtiv. But here, it's written where it says clearly injuring another person. Dichtiv, why it says, b'chovel b'chavero, bar tashluminhu. But there it implies that one who injures another person has to make a payment. Imeno inyan lahaka'a, sheyesh b'shave pruta. But if we're saying that it's a wound that doesn't justify or isn't equal to the amount of a pruta, tenehu inyan lahaka'a she'ein b'shave pruta. We teach it in regarding to a wound where it is not a shava pruta. Okay, where we might say that in that case, even though the payment is not shava pruta, which might argue you wouldn't have to pay, nevertheless, you still would get lashes. So therefore, they could argue, I'm going to apply it in that situation and say maybe that's a case where you're going to get both lashes and have to do the payment. Okay, so that was the other example. So as we go on, right, to the next amud, lav bar tashlumin. Ultimately, then, that would imply that he wouldn't have to pay anything, right? No damages. Okay, but what happens, says the Gemara, lo tzricha de bahade the mechia kara shira'im delay. No, we do need it. Why? Because in that other case, we're saying that what happened is when he struck him, at the same time, he tore part of his silken garments. So therefore, he has to pay, okay, for the damage to the garments, okay, but gets malchus for the wound he inflicted on the person. So that would be an example, clear example of where you would say he would love, okay, that we wouldn't have, that there would be, so to speak, double jeopardy. Okay, all right, love come right? Okay, so what happens?
Because even if the wound was less than a shava pruta, but by tearing the garment,
you would have to pay.
Yeah,
right.
That's
right.
That's the way I scroll.
Yeah. Amarle Rab Chia Rab. So somebody else now speaks to Rab. Okay. Ulatana. Okay, Sid. Right. Right. Ulatana de Bechizkia. And according to the Academy of Bechizkia, the Amar, okay, who say, base their explanation on the pasuk, Makeh Adamu Makeh Behema, Mimayel de Bechovel Kativ. Okay, if they use that, on what basis do they say we use the example of chovel, okay, of injuring a person, all right? Veleka le'efluge, and okay, that means we do not distinguish between shogeg and mezid. Dilma b'shabbat kativ. Maybe we're talking about a situation that it was occurred on Shabbos. The bebehema gufa ikale efluge, that with regarding the striking of the animal itself, there one would distinguish between shogeg and mezi. Lo salkadata, don't even consider that, says the Gemara. Dichtiv, because it's written in the pasuk, umakeh behema yishalmenu, umakeh adam yumat, because there the pasuk itself makes the distinction. Okay, hechidami, how is that possible? Idelo atruve, if they had not warned him, makeh adam amayumat, the one who strikes the person, why should he die? Ela pshita, but rather it must be obvious as follows: the atruve, that indeed they must have warned him. Ve'i b'Shabbat, and were it to have occurred on Shabbos, makeh behema yishalmenu, are we saying there that for striking the animal he would have to pay? Okay, rather
And it can't be because Kum Leben Rabbin.
right, because
He's
you would
higher in Shabbos,
right, he
and
would be chayav more on the Shabbos isur
So then why
than
how
on
would you say he
right
would have to
than
pay?
on paying the price for damaging the animal. Okay, Ela lav b'chol.
So, the pasuk
So
that's
therefore, it
talking
has to
about
apply a
not-
weekday
not on the
vachadik
Shabbos.
situation. Okay, now, so remember we saw Abaye also did a gzera shav, right? So now Rav Papa is going to challenge Abaye. First he challenged Rava, now he's challenging Abaye, right? Amar le Rav Papa l'Abaye, le Rava, according to your buddy Rava, the Amar chidush hu shechidsha Torah b'knas, that the Torah made in chiddush, a new element, when it established this idea of a fine, okay? Va'afal gav the miktal mishalem, where despite the fact that he's killed, he also has to pay, okay? And remember we said that was the view of Rabbi Meir, okay? Matnitin keman mokimla. This Mishnah, according to whom was it established? Ika Rabbi Meir. Were it the view of Rabbi Meir, kasha bito, then Rabbi Meir should have a problem with the example of rape to the daughter. Why? Why? Because the death penalty, he still has to pay the fine.
He's
Okay.
putter from paying the fine, and that wouldn't be according to Rameir.
Right, because if she died, okay, wouldn't have to pay. Ika Rabbi Nechunya ben HaKaneh, if it was according to the view of Rabbi Nechunya HaKaneh, okay, whose view was karet, is a parallel to death, and therefore, what happens? He has to. The penalty is no fine. Kasha achoto. Then he would have a problem with the rape of the sister. Ika Rabbi Yitzchak, and if we're talking, it's to Rabbi Yitzchak. Okay, we're there. We would say that Rabbi Yitzchak has a different view. Okay, that lashes implies no fine, but no lashes implies pay the fine. Kasha mamzeret. Then we would have a problem with the rape of the mamzeret. So the Gemara says, Ha necha isavar la k'Rabbi Yochanan. That's acceptable if Rabbah has about a forewarning like Rabbi Yochanan. Who? Nami mitaretz la k'Rabbi Yochanan. Because then he can explain it just like Rabbi Yochanan explains it, that there is hatra. Ela isavar k'Reish Lakish. But if he held like Rabbi Reish Lakish, where he claims he's patur, even where there would be hatra, certainly if there's no hatra, okay, where it's done in shogeg, right? Hechi mitaretzla. How then would he explain our Mishnah? Al korchach k'Rabbi Yochanan svarile. Okay, you have no other choice but to assume that he must hold like Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, so what happens now? Amarle Rav Matana la Abaye. So Rav Matana says to Abaye, L'reish Lakish da Amar b'Ferush Riv to Torah Chayve Malkiot Kechavai Maito. According to the view of Reish Lakish, who said that the Torah particularly included those condemned for Malchus,
The same way.
the same way they, right, that they did condemn those for death penalty. Man Tana de Paligale, the Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakaneh. Who is the Tana that disagrees with him? It must be Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakaneh. Okay. Oh, Rabbi Meir, because were it be Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yitzchak, or maybe it could be Rabbi Yitzchak. Okay? So we don't really have a conclusion there of Rav Matana's challenge to Abaye. Okay? Now, instead, the Gemara goes on and comes back to our issues that our Mishnah raised. Tana Rabbanan says this new bright Arayot. This is the forbidden relatives. Ushniot la Arayot. And secondary forbidden relatives that were decreed by Chazal. Right? Ein lahen lo knas velo pitui. We do not hold in those situations of rape either a fine or the issue of seduction. Okay? Hamam enet ein la lo knas velo pitui. And a young woman who has refused marriage to someone, if she becomes raped, again, there is no fine and there is no issue of seduction. Ailonit, okay, a woman incapable of sexual reproduction. Let's use that phrase. Ein la lo knas velo pitui. She also does not have, if raped, a fine or a issue of seduction. Right? And furthermore, another case, v'hayotzeet mishum shem ra, one who goes out because of a bad reputation. Let's use that phrase, okay? A translation, right? Ein la lo knas v'lo pitui. She also does not have, if she is raped, a fine. No fine is to be paid. Okay, that may be a better answer. No fine is to be paid. And there is also no issue of seduction. So the Gemara now asks, Ma yarayot u ma shniot la arayot? What do we mean when we say forbidden relatives and secondary forbidden relatives? Ilema arayot. If we're saying we're just going to go over a little bit, arayot, forbidden relatives, arayot mamash, that it's actually forbidden relatives. Shniot midivrei sofrim, and the secondary forbidden, second degree forbidden relatives, right, is rabbinic. Kevan de oraita chas yalei, amai ein lehem knas. Since we say that these are actually forbidden by the Torah, okay?
In the Torah, he could marry her.
Right?
It's only the Rabbanan
that says that it's right.
You can't, so then there should be.
So why shouldn't there be? In other words, if it has some level of Torah validity, let's say it that way, so why shouldn't there be a knas in that situation? Okay, right? So that's where. So I'm just going to finish up. Ela arayot chayve mitot beitin shniot chayve kritut aval chayve lavin yesh lehen knas. Okay, so what does he finish up with here? That with regards to the arayot, okay, what are we saying? That there is an obligation of the beitin putting them to death, the death penalty there. Shniot, the secondary ones, okay, there is karet, all right, but val achayve lavin, okay, but if it's a well, not third degree. If the prohibition is simply a law,
Law.
okay, remember, yesh lehen knas, they would have to pay a penalty
So I'm
for rape.
and seeing.
Right, so in
Those
those
are only lav.
situations, those are basically a lav situation. There we would say the knas would be applicable. Okay, and we'll stop just there for today. All right. All right.
Right.
Okay. I know we have the time, but maybe I should have gone longer because the Amud Beis tomorrow is a long one.
Okay, don't worry, you're finished.
Okay. All right. Okay, so the Mishnah we get on Amud Beis tomorrow gives another different scenario.
Right.
Okay. All right. Okay.